everybody. So from my experience as a coach over the past 15 months, the biggest conclusion I've been able to come to is that actually most people very often that come to me, they're not training too easy. They're training too hard very often, and when you look around on the internet, you see very often that people advocate that you need to push hard all the time, go harder the next time, do this and do that, always striving to do more and bigger things. But I think for people that are already really dedicated, that is not a solution. I've certainly seen that with my own training. I used to do way more volume and sets and train closer to failure. You know, as a beginner, you can keep on adding weight to the bar every week. You can be on the edge of your capabilities. Do 3 sets of 5 at like all sets for the last rep between RP8 and 10, doing around like 12 around 12 effective reps within the last 5 of failure, and you can still progress. But for me now, if I do that in front squat, I'm gonna be dead. I'm gonna be injured. I won't progress at all. I'll actually regress. And you saw that in the beginning of this series, in the beginning of January, where I failed 170 kilo front squat because I was just overstimulated. I didn't take enough easy days. I was just trying to constantly go for a very, very hard PR. So for me now, like, one of the things I've set up for myself, one of the walls I've set up for myself is that within 1 week I should rarely do more than 5 to 10 grindy reps, do up between that. Most weeks, actually, probably below 5. Very rarely should I come up to between 5 to 10. I mean, if I reach 10, it's gonna be if I have to do a huge volume PR, something like that. But I know after that I'm gonna be absolutely bungered, and I'll have to lower my RPE for the following few trainings, 2 or 3 trainings at least, to be able to push my body again. If I start to go hard again too early, I'll just put an extra layer on fatigue, and I risk overtraining and getting injured. And I've tried that in the past. It's not something that I want to do. It's fun going all out and setting really crazy PRs where I max out. That's what we all train for and be able to push our limits. But it also comes with a risk, and for me, every time I have to do something extremely hard, like the 10 reps with 150 kilos that I did yesterday, I always get extremely nervous. I become a nerve wreck the day before, the night before especially, and on the day. Like, I can feel that my heartbeat is pumping faster than usual, which that is not a good thing. That's not something I like. I don't do the very hard thing because I like it. I do it because I like the feeling that I get after, but the period up to that, that's not worth it to do that constantly, every single week in, week out. And the thing I've seen with clients, I've had clients who come to me that have done bench press 2 or 3 times a week, and every training they would do 5 sets with up between RP 8 and 9 for almost every set. So that is going to be like 10 to 15 very, very hard set, 20 plus challenging reps, effective reps in 1 week, in 1 single week. Simply by lowering that down and doing a lot more volume at sub-maximal volume, where they do something like 4 sets of 5 plus an arm rep where they can do like 10 reps. So they're only doing like 5 effective reps then. But they're getting in a lot of sub-maximal volume, and they've actually seen extremely good progress from that, because they're able to get in more practice, and they're still able to get in the extreme hard set to failure that is gonna raise their ability to push to failure and lift heavy weights and the nervous system in general, while all the volume in general that enables them to just get a better feel for the movement. They get a better understanding of like of the communication between muscles and stuff like that, and the technical ability in terms of the exercise. So that's one thing I find works extremely well. But I mean, in general, for most clients, I've just begun like lowering the general expectation for them, especially if we're running something like a 4-week block, the usual powerlifting thing where you're doing wave loading. So we're starting with a block of 5s, then 3s, and then 1s, or 5s and 4s, and then 3s. So in the first week, always we want to go very easy, because one of the concepts that I've started implementing is that you have to stimulate, don't annihilate. You want to make sure you have the ability to hit what you want to hit on the 4th week by doing as little as needed on the other weeks. And especially on the 3rd week, where you're going to do like around an RP8 single. You should rather keep that on the lighter side, because if you're beginning to go too heavy there, you might cause excessive fatigue that is going to carry over into the 4th week when you have to do your max out set and you want to perform. So even though the program says RP8, for myself, I know that with my circular deadlift, before doing the 200 kg, the week before, the heaviest single I did, that was 165 kg. So, and the week before that, right, I did, 3 weeks before that, I did 2 reps of 175 at like RP8.5. So, I think that 165 kg was probably around RP5 to 6. So, I mean, even though it was extremely light, and I didn't push harder than that, the hardest thing I've ever done for reps, and even just like the hardest thing I've ever done in general for the circuit deadlift was 175 kg. I was still able to get the 200. So that just goes to show that you don't need to push extremely close to failure. Most of the time, you can stay below 90% of what you actually think you want to hit, and you'll be able to hit it. When you start to get up around the 95% territory, you basically risk putting too much fatigue on your body. I see some of the best powerlifters. If you look at Austin Perkins, he just did 340 kilo deadlift at 75 kilo body weight, which is like totally unbelievable. Even I don't care if he's on all the training in the world or whatever he's taking, all the SAMs. That is one of the most crazy feat of strength I think you're ever likely to see in terms of body weight to strength ratio in the deadlift. And he just started a new block, and if you go and look on his page on Instagram, you'll see that he started with a single on deadlift all the way back at 250 kg. That is below 75% of his 1 rep max. And I know he's gonna have some fatigue probably from the 340 because he's so strong that it's gonna take maybe like 2 weeks for his central nervous system to fully recover from that max out single. But even then, let's say he has like 5% of drop in performance after having waited for a bit over a week, right? It's still gonna be 80% of what he can do on that day. I mean, that's gonna be like way below an RP 5 to 6. That's gonna be like RP 3, something like that. So it's a complete lie, I feel like, for people who say that you should start at like RP 6, 7, 8, 9 and build up like that over the 4 weeks. You can start way lower than that and get enough stimulation. You'll also be able to grind harder on your isolation that is not gonna cause as much central nerve fatigue. And that way you can focus more on getting in some quality hypertrophy work and build muscle that will help you later on. So that is a few keys I have been implementing in my training that's been going really easy. Just looking at some of the best people in the world, what they do, is often going to be a really good indicator of what works. Even though some people will say that, but they have good genetics that don't have the same really good freakish genetics that they have. I think that's a stupid argument, because a lot of these people that get to the top of the world, and if you look at like powerlifting, strongman, stuff like that, they're extremely dedicated. They might have good genetics as well, but a lot of them are also just like extremely, unbelievably dedicated. Not like these NFL players who you see get to the top and earn like millions of like dollars almost every week. Like can earn like $1 million a week, and then they can go out drinking every week and stuff like that because they just have the most insane genetics in the world. These people could go in to powerlifting and blow everyone out of the water if they wanted, in my opinion. It doesn't take nearly the same amount of dedication that it takes to get good at powerlifting. So, yeah, that's just like one thing. I think a lot of people forget there's so many people out there in the world who does other things that are extremely good at what they do, and people only look at the strength people like, oh, well, that's like totally impossible to do that at his body weight with average genetics and without taking anything. But what people tend to forget is that there's a lot of freaks. If you look at the NFL, there's freaks everywhere. If you look at sprinting, stuff like that, Usain Bolt is an absolute maniac of a freak. If he went into strength sport, there's no doubt that he could do extremely well. If someone like, I don't know, man, someone in the NFL just went into strength sport, a lot of them would do extremely well. You see how teenagers in the NFL combine stuff like that. They're able to do 4-plate front squats for reps without problems. Like 180 kg moving outrageously fast. And that is just like, man, these guys are just built for it, man. They can grind through things with the powers of form because they have the strength that they're just born with. So I think if you're gonna look at someone and the way they do it, don't look at like most of these athletes, because you wouldn't be able to do what they do by going out drinking a lot of most weekends and not having the most perfect sleep. But look at something like the best powerlifters, or the best strongmen, or the best calisthenics athletes, the best Olympic weightlifters, because that is a sport that requires a lot more dedication than a lot of these really big sports with just a lot of money in them. These people are a lot more dedicated to do this shit without earning a ton of money, which should be a lot more encouraging for you, and you should look way more up to that type of person. So look at those people, look at what they do, try to implement that, because you know it's something that is going to work if you're going to be really dedicated, because these people are not that freakish like some other people out there in the world. Right, as expected, my hamstrings today, they were absolutely hammered after the post deep stiff legged good mornings yesterday. Despite not using more than 60 kilos, that was all it took for me to get more sore than I've been for, I would say, like 4 months in my hamstrings. Around 4 to 6 months ago was the last time I definitely was this sore. And in that past time, I've been lifting way above 100 kilos the whole time, mainly on the other side of 150 kilos almost every training, and I've never gotten sore. And it's not just because it's more reps and you get sore. I can get sore from lower reps too if I've just pushed really hard and I've caused muscle damage that way. But what it is just the way the exercise is, deep stiff leg good morning, when the bar is placed so far out on your back. When you get to the deep position, when you're getting that big of a stretch on your hamstrings and the bar is so much out, the downward pressure that you have to fight against with your hamstrings and with your glutes, and also the work you need to put in to keep your legs straight in that movement, that puts a ton of pressure on the hamstrings in an extremely stretched position. So for me, that is enough to get extremely sore. And as I talked about, that my plan originally was to get back into conventional deadlift now to see how close I am to 300, and if I could do that just by building up a little bit. But I changed my mind because, after all, lifting heavier weights, when it comes to bodybuilding and strength, it's not the most optimal way. Sure, when you want to be specific and just get your deadlift up, if I ran a 6-week or something like that block of just deadlift, focus on that, I would put on maybe like 20 kg just because of the specificity and getting my technique locked in. But I can do that at any point in time. When I max out and I can't get stronger, I'll have to do a building phase again when my technique is just spot on. I'll have to build on more muscle mass again and do something. So why not do that now already and build up even further before I really try to push my deadlift hard. By using lighter weights, I'm able to train in a mixture of harder, more frequently, and with higher volume. For me, that is going to be, right now it's going to be mainly more volume and probably also a little bit more intensity than I would be able to put in with if I train the conventional deadlift twice a week. And I think it's a thing a lot of people underestimate, the uses of just mechanical disadvantage exercises in terms of building a good physique. Because if you can understand, if you know how the body works, you know that you can do similar movements that will target the same things. A deadlift, after all, it's just a hinge movement where you're using your quads a little bit because you're getting a little bit of knee traveling forwards past the point where you're starting not just to move your butt backwards only and get the stretch in the hamstrings and your glutes. So, but apart from that, it's just a hinge movement. And it's the same thing doing the deep stiff leg good mornings. The bar is just placed so far out that because of the lever arm principle, then it'll feel a lot harder with the same weight. And because the weight is so much lighter, it'll be much less fatiguing. The weight on your spine is going to feel like nothing. That's not going to be hard. So CNS recovery wise as well, it's going to feel extremely good. Mentally, I feel a lot better having to only throw on like 80 kg if I'm going to do a set of 10, instead of having to throw on like 180 kg to get in a somewhat hard set of 10 on the deadlift. So that's a huge difference mentally, not having to load a lot of weight onto the bar. Also, it will allow me to focus even more on my front squat, because I'm getting close to 200 now, and squatting can always be my closest to my heart, the thing I love the most. So I want to be able to push that extremely hard and get up to 200 kilo front squat and 100 kilo for 100 reps at some point. So by being able to recover faster from my good mornings and stuff, I'll be able to push my squat a little harder without pushing into a territory of overtraining and risking getting injured. I'll still stay pretty conservative with the RPEs for a little bit, around RPE 6 to 7, I break PRs around that point, because I can do that easily now after having set the 10 with 150 kilos, and that'll be good enough to build up more strength. And at some point when I have to go for the 200, I'll start pushing more and more again a little bit. But in the meantime, I can also push my good mornings more. So that is going to be a huge win. I can push my surger walking lunges even more as well. And after all, by bringing those up, the average weight I'm going to be lifting in those, that is going to give me huge growth for the future. Being able to have higher standards even on those when I decide to go hard again and I will be able to do sets of 110, 120 kilos on the circuit deadlift, even after I've done some harder squats. So that's gonna be really nice. And yeah, for me, like, I know that my hamstrings, they'll get used to this stretch pretty fast. Like, the main thing about how sore I am today, like, usually I can go down and touch the floor extremely easy with my palms just resting against it, even with my arms a little bit bent and my knees, while my knees are still fully locked. But today, that's a huge struggle. I can do it with some warm up, but it's not just something I can do just anytime. So that shows me that my hamstrings, they are like slaughtered today. But I will get used to it fast. When I'm used to it and don't get the soreness really, I'll be able to push these deep, stiff leg good mornings really hard. And I want to get up to 100 plus kg for 10 reps, because, and simply I would want to prove people wrong, because there are so many people saying that it's hard to get above your, or even impossible to get above your body weight on stiff leg good mornings, because the weight gets so much out in front of you and you can't put that much weight in your heels. But I want to prove people wrong. You know how I train. We're not gonna just sit around and just listen to people. Gonna put in the work that no one wanna put in, and then people can come after that, and we'll be able to say that who's laughing now. So that's the plan. After that, I will move on to normal good mornings, hopefully getting up to 150 kg for 5 reps. So that's starting to get heavy. But again, the other option would be to remain in deadlift and get up to like 230, 240, 230 kilos, something like that for 5 reps. And at that point, that will be extremely fatiguing. That's like 30% more weight, and actually like 35% more weight. And I wouldn't want to do that. I know that is going to be too fatiguing for me. Also, I actually want to leave you with one last thing. So I hear a lot of people say that these variations that I do, these circuit deadlifts, circuit Jefferson curls, good mornings, stuff like that, are really dangerous for the back. I just want to say, where the hell do you feel the exercise when you're doing it, when you're done? Do you feel it in your hamstrings and your glutes, or do you feel it in your lower back? For me, my hamstrings, when I do high rep on circuit deadlift and circuit Jefferson curls or good mornings, something like that, I feel it in my hamstrings. I don't feel it in my lower back unless I'm doing good mornings, because the lower back function is to keep the back straight, stop it from rounding, right? Doing good mornings, it's when the bar is so far out on the neck, it's working statically to keep the spine rigid, to stop it from rounding too much. So sure, when I go heavy on that, I can feel it. But if I go heavy on circuit Jefferson curls or circuit deadlift, I don't feel it much. Sure, there's movement in the lower back, stuff like that, and I'm rounding. But the weight is so close to me, and I'm getting a stretch in the lower back, but the weight is so close, so it's not really heavy for the lower back at all. And it's like I can feel my glutes contracting and stuff like that, and my hamstrings. When I pull up, I feel the stretch mainly in my glutes and hamstrings. So yeah, it's just like, if you know how the body works, you'll know that this is true. Because as you go down in the circuit deadlift, I like to start with my feet a little bit turned out, so I can actually feel my glutes. And as I start to go down, I can still feel my glutes now that they are squeezed. So I know at this point here, right, I'm still only rounding my back, right? So right now my glutes, they're not working at this point in time. So I'll say to you when I start to feel my glute stretch, right? So as I go down, I still feel my glutes, still feel them. Now I don't. Now I can feel that my glutes, they're just like not stretched anymore. This means now I'm getting into the hinge part of the movement, right? And basically from this point to this point here, right, where I've rounded my back, this is such a small part of the range of motion. Like, if you look at where my arms are here, this part here, right, this is such a small part of the range of motion. Like, my hands barely move, it's just my back that is rounding. So I get into this rounded position here, and then as I hinge down, that's actually when I start to move the weight down. So I go up again, and here again, squeeze the glutes here, and then I just extend. So when I'm doing when your back is rounding, right, the weight is barely moving, and that should be a clear indicator that it's not that much of lower back, that hard for lower back. The only reason you'll hear people get injured on it is the same reason as people get injured from deadlifts, because they're using too much weight that they're not used to. So the weight is going to pull them down into a position they're not strong in. And a lot of people, they don't have flexibility for this. But they'll think that when they come from a path of lifting heavy deadlifts and have been able to do that, that they can just throw weight on this, and basically you'll see that they get injured because the weight just pulls them down without them being able to control it with their glutes and hamstrings, right? So they get too much of a stretch because, as I said, you're getting a stretch on the lower back, but you're not really using it that much because the weight is barely moving, but you get a stretch in the bottom position, obviously, because you're rounding your back, which is puts a stretch on the erectors. So that is just basically what it's about. Like, that's just what I wanted to say for this now, and I'll see you all later.